So here we are for our fourth session on Spirit at Work with Peter Leong. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Mark. It's good to be here for our fourth podcast. I think the story is the story of reawakening spirit and spirituality and work is slowly, threading itself to this fourth podcast. So, Mark, let's begin.
Absolutely. So, Peter, you've taken us on this great journey so far, and I think it's always good just to do a brief recap on where we stand. And I believe you've prepared a slide for that. So let me pull that up.
Yeah. I did this recap because we have captured so many information in the first three podcasts. And I think it's useful for everyone just to have this recap, as you say. So the first thing is, we talked about the great chain of being, right? This is the perennial wisdom. And the great chain of being shows us that all the major wisdoms of or religious tradition share a single truth. And therefore, the takeaway point for this is that it makes it possible for us to distinguish between the higher and lower level of being. In other words, as we said in the earlier podcast, if we want to engage with spirit and spirituality in work, let's ensure that we start from the high, because the high will ensure that we have the best possible impact and success of implementing individual, team level, or organizational level spirit into the workplace. So the second point is, Mark, is, as you observed during our discussion, our sharing last podcast, you note that man is in the beginning. I think this is a very, very insightful point. And it reminds us not to forget this, that as human person, when we look at it through a worldview, a perspective of the role and the place that spirit plays in us, we are right in the middle between the unknown, the realm, the being realm, and the doing realm, all right, the level of the matter, right? The third thing, Mark, as a quick recap, is that the place of human person in terms of the circle image that we see there, from matter in the center of the circle to spirit in the outer part of the circle. It just, if you think about it, all right, matter is A, and then you look at it, A plus B, and we come to the point where when the soul and the mind engages through the soul, we have A, B, C, and D. So this is where spirituality awakens, all right? But spirituality is already in matter. So this also reminds me of the case where we often say, we are invited, therefore, to remember that we ourselves can look at us as spiritual being having a human experience, right? Spiritual being having a human experience, more so than we are human beings having a spiritual assessment. Think about it. Spiritual beings having a human experience, more so than human beings having a spiritual. And this is a turning point, if you like, right? To see ourselves and your partner, your friends, everyone in the organization as both spiritual beings as well as human beings. I think this insight can help us and guide us. Then we talk about the strategic inflection point. Well, I think that's very clear itself. One of the things I highlight, which perhaps I didn't mention, is that if you look at the exponential growth and the decline growth, all right, where the middle is stagnation, ask yourself the question, all right, the world which we work in, the world that we live in today, with all the challenges and with all the progress that we have made, first of all, but with also the accompanying challenges that we seem to struggle with, all right? Which rate, ask yourself, which rate is growing faster? Is the exponential rate growing faster, or the decline, or just staying where we are? Now, what we have to be aware of is that the rate of decline is greater. If you feel that way, then something needs to be done. A strategic choice needs to be made. And the invitation I've made with you, Mark, is to take the opportunity at this inflection point to reawaken spirit and use spirit and spirituality to build new growth platforms, to re-energize existing platforms in your work, in your organization, into higher spirituality influence, all right, into work. And in the next podcast, we'll talk about, the case for doing this. And so maybe we can go to the next slide. Here, what we are saying, that whatever you think is the highest ultimate reality for you, whether it's God, whether it's Brahman, whether it's, the Tao, whether it's Allah, whether it's Yahweh, there is a spirit inherent in all this. And spirit is this dynamic nature of the ultimate reality. So the point that I want to make quite explicitly, through learning from other enlightened people, that in the beginning there's spirit, and spirit is the ultimate energy that started creation and the universe, our world, matter, everything that we experience today through our mind, body, and our, if you like, spiritual intelligence, if you like, primarily through the heart. So just to very quickly, what happens then if we take this ultimate starting point, all right? So we begin to see this is a process called involution, where this ultimate potential and creativity, which we call spirit, some people prefer to call it consciousness, even the ultimate consciousness, is that this in the creative process, the enfolding of energy into the soul level. So spirit as spirit step down as spirit as soul, and then it steps down as spirit as mind. It steps further down, all right, as life or body, all right, and finally material. And this therefore shows us that when the Big Bang happened, when the universe was created, spirit has already been at play, right? The Vedantic Hindu tradition have a term for it called Leela, all right? And through the Christian mystic stream, we call it kenosis, which is the surrendering of spirit into the manifestation of the world. So these are all converging, as I said, path of great wisdom towards this great wisdom. And that the important thing here is to look at the fact that ultimately, that's the thing that I hope, will catch on, that matter is a form of spirit, because it all has spirit, except that it is unconscious of itself. You want to look at it from this, play, all right? And if you now, what we'll do in the next slide is to reverse this, because right now, the current evolutionary thinking, the primary driver, apart from the people who are already convinced that evolution is the upward turn of involution. But most of the people, particularly in the modern era, through scientific and rational thinking, would think that matter is only about atoms, molecules, and so on, because they may themselves know it, but they cannot bring it into the conversation, because that's the way science and rational thinking. It's invisible, it's intangible, it's esoteric, it's only knowledge for a few, whereas science wants to reach out to, more esoteric type of approach. So this is the most important thing, all right?
When I was listening to you, what made this whole idea really, really tangible was when I think about a newborn coming into the world, like giving life, right? Like, isn't that amazing? Isn't that exactly what this is? It's like the source, there's spirit, it's nothing. There's nothing, it's just it starts from nothing, and then it comes into matter, and all of a sudden you have this newborn, you have this child, you have this life, that is in the material world. And that's like a big bang in itself, isn't it? Every child that's born is like a big bang.
How interesting an observation, Mark. How interesting. I think you probably will be the first to bring this analogy as far as my research and my studying goes, and I think it's highly appropriate. So birth, from inception, all right, it comes out of matter. We are all matter. Our brains, our physical brain, and our body, our hearts, all the organs, all right. And here, from this life, newborn Big Bang, is essentially matter. It has not yet, it is spirit. It's spirit in its fullest potential, condensed form of potential creativity, waiting to come out into the world so that it can, all right, and it can do this. It has the creativity, the potential. The ultimate reality is it is this way because spirit has involuted itself.
Yeah.
Let's pause for a moment and just run through perhaps this. So starting from matter, a birth on earth, whatever you're talking about, it could be the birth of a human person, it could be the creation of nature, and it could be any the stars, the satellite, all right, all beginning from matter. And it is totally unconscious, because spirit has involuted into an unconscious. It has not yet begun, all right? But through evolution, all right, we know that things manifest itself. Things change and become more and more complex. So from matter, we have, from simple molecules, subatomic particles, we have atoms, and from atoms, we have molecules, and from molecules, we have, cells, and from cells, we start to evolve, and finally into life. a plant life, the first primary life living cell. I think you call them pyrocodes, right? And then this evolution. And think of it, therefore, as spirit awakening. All right, when life happens, spirit awakens from its slumber, but life is not yet able to reflect on itself. But there is this creative drive for spirit to go back home. And then the evolutionary process, both biological and spiritual point of view, it becomes human. All right, first higher primates, animals, it becomes, evolving into humans. And humans has got this special source, the sea. All right. And this is the ability, because it's A plus B is matter plus body and or life, into C. And C is this ability of the consciousness that it enables it to reflect on itself. Right. And then once we reach that, the complexity completely changes. All right. And the speed, if you like, of evolutionary speed picks up a high level of momentum. So we look at it through the spirit story, or what we call spirit is acting. Once it's awakened itself, it can see that it has a subjective self, all right, and it leaves the mind. And because spirit recognizes beauty, spirit recognizes goodness, because this is where it comes from. Recognize greatness, recognize wisdom, and so towards joy and happiness, the ultimate peace, all right, the ultimate joy. So going through the process into touching the soul and finally beginning to look at spirit as spirit. And I think, for us, it's very important to say, if we've reached soul and spirit level, all right, even though there are final spirit goes back to spirit in itself, it really doesn't matter. The point we are trying to make here is that from the modernity and even today in the postmodern period, most of us, all right, not everyone, most of us are still in the mind-body level. All right, the mind meaning to say we've got brain, evolving brain, we're able to handle more and more complex, all right? And as long as we are able to highlight to the point that the A plus B and C is already a very high level of evolution taking place from this child Big Bang that you talked about, Mark, right? But in order to confront higher and higher complexity in the universe, in nature, all right, and in the manifest economic, political, spiritual world that we are in, we are not able yet to succumb and overcome. We are succumbing to stagnation. We have not yet able to overcome. So if you look at this story, then the invitation, and I hope it will prompt you to think that we have to evolve further from the great progress we have made. And I keep repeating, when you say great progress, you always have great challenges. And in order to lift the growth curve, we need to look at soul and spirit. We need to reawaken this original creativity that is already inherent in us because of the evolutionary story we just told. So I think we can wrap up here. The point here, we want to end is to say that if we embrace the latent value of the idea of hidden spirit or our spiritual being as a secret mystery, this podcast nor any training further will explain everything together, because we have to look at it from a mystical, mysterious point of view. All right. It relies on the way you identify with your spirit and how you best can, awaken the spirit in your own unique way. And the other point is, what we are saying is that the scientific, rational, materialistic mind must remember, all right, this spirit at work, spirit in play, all right? If you put these two together, right, then you already, preempted this. Our being and our consciousness exists as a spectrum reaching from matter to body to mind to soul and spirit. All right. And just remember one more thing, all right, is that spirit is not the ladder of maturity only. Spirit is the pervading, the ground, if you like, all right, the inherent nature of the entire spectrum. Right. This would take some time, not some time. This already, I think you can get a sense of it. That spirit is not only playing in and in acting, all right. Spirit is inherent, as we say, from gross material into more subtle forms and finally into causal forms. Yeah. And the whole, now we come to the part where we say we now have the highest level of knowledge of how we can, use this highest level of knowledge to awaken spirituality in the workplace. And, learning from our work with Being at Full Potential, we always had the tagline, if you like, when the being comes alive, the doing thrives. And this is just a version of it, all right? Is that when the spirit is awakened, it moves, all right? And then the organization and the people will thrive because, all right, as we have alluded to, and as, I hope participants would have got, that we got some really unique position in life, the C and the D, the soul and the spirit, that we can reawaken to push us back, to push your team, your organization, all right, your community into a growth trajectory. I can't think of another better way of doing it, Mark, to really, and I can end by saying, to use your very, very special example of birth. It is actually a rebirth of where you are, where your team is, where your organization is at this point in time. If, as I say, if you wish to, look into how spirit can shift, the whole momentum of yourself and your team and so on.
This has been just such a wonderful journey, Peter, you've taken us on. And you've brought this material to life, in very profound ways. And I think it's because it comes from deep within you, in your spirit. It's like an expression of your spirit. I feel like this whole podcast series has been you expressing your highest potential, you expressing your spirit. And it really comes from a deep place within you. And I can feel that. I'm sure that our listeners can sense that as well. So thank you, Peter. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Mark.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next one or two. I don't know how many we still have left, but anyway, it just continues to unfold.
Thank you, Mark. You can see that I'm pretty spirited once we, get into, and you're exactly right. All right. I come from my own spiritual journey, the realization of this all, and I'm just simply trying to, use the work of so many people across the ages and try to put it in the way that I want to share with anyone, for that matter, anyone.
It's a real gift, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Really good.